I sent you a message
Can't,
again.
it says you
I
can't.
don't remember what he wanted.
Call the Wilmer City Council meeting to order for Monday, July 18th. Roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Here.
Osmus.
Here.
Butterfield.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
Osk.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Plowman.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance We're having technical difficulties with the rack connection this evening, and it is available on live stream and also on YouTube. And so the council meeting will continue. Staff is working on correcting the problem. Is there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next, consent items. Mr. Box, our operations director for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the consent agenda tonight, the City Council minutes of July 5th, 2022, the Wilmer Municipal Utilities Commission minutes of July 11th, Planning Commission minutes of June 15th, Accounts Payable Report for June 25th through July 13th, an application for exempt permit for the Pennock Lions Club, temporary on-sale liquor license for the Candy Ojai County Fair Association, a temporary on-sale liquor license for the Foxhole Brewhouse, airport grant agreement for replacement of AWAS, and for your information, building reports for the month of June, finance reports, and housing task force minutes of June 16th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the consent items. Discussion. Councilmember Osmus.
Could I pull B, the utilities?
Yes. Anything else? Motion has been made and seconded to approve all items other than item B. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous.
Okay, that motion is, that resolution has been approved. Councilmember Osmus.
Okay, on the second page, it talked about the Labor Committee agenda items will include a new logo and rate study. So I've got two questions. One, do they use the Flying W logo like the city?
You asking me?
No, I need to move back so I can see.
Oh.
Do they use the city logo?
Yeah,
No, they have their own. And
okay,
I'm surprised. Usually it's on their, it looks like the wind turbine and then with water underneath it type sort of thing.
okay. So then that brings me into my second question, which isn't a part of their, their minutes. But I believe about 2 years ago, we started to have a discussion about a new city logo. And we were going to wait until you came on board and you got everybody became on board and had the major things on the plates moved aside. But that is something we should put on the back burner, that we're looking at a new logo, because Park and Rec did have one a couple of years ago, and we were using two different ones.
Right.
You're aware of all that?
And
Okay,
we are still using those two different ones. We have the official one and then we have the unofficial one.
okay. When I saw that, I thought if they're going to be working on a logo, we should all be working together.
Yes, and it
But-
would help to move our website along too.
Sure. Okay. I'll make a motion to pass the utilities minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion does carry. Next, we have open forum, and we have one individual who is requesting to speak to the council, Ms. Villars. Sorry about that. And again, you have 3 minutes, and then the council generally doesn't take any action here but staff will either get back with you or individual council members may contact you or whatever. So go ahead, state whether you reside within the city of Wilmer or outside of the city of Wilmer, and then address your issues. And then we do have a timer over here, and so you can see how much time you have left, because as being a presenter, you know
I
all
need
about.
better glasses to see that time.
Yeah, I just listen for the bars. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Monica Villers. I'm a resident of 2nd Street, the infamous 2nd Street that most people know about, and I know I've written to all of you. I'm here speaking to the City Council to communicate issues with the 2nd Street project and to make issues public. It was suggested to me that someone come to this meeting and request a meeting to discuss these important decisions about 2nd Street. I am making that request. As per the Planning Commission, you are the group that I should be speaking with. I did a little research, and at the end of the Planning Commission statement on the website, it says the Planning Commission's decisions are subject to City Council approval. So I figure it's you guys that I'm supposed to be talking to. They say you can't fight City Hall. I have no interest in fighting City Hall. We can work as a team. To do so, all we need to do is communicate. Today, I found out some interesting facts this afternoon, that the street had been planned to be widened, but it's not because the utilities did not want to move the items that needed to be. We are losing a sidewalk, which was going to be allowing the widening of the street. It's not being widened. The new street is too narrow for two-way traffic. The catch basin at Augusta and Southeast 2nd is new, but not up to code. For some reason, that was allowed to pass. There is no captain to the ship, and the ship is sending out distress signals. Almost 2 years ago, Lakeland Broadcasting posted 2 different times identifying 2nd Street becoming a one-way. I have emailed those postings to all of you after no one seemed to remember that the street was to become a one-way. I also understood that the road would be wider, which is why there would be only a sidewalk on the west side. Last summer, I spoke with Gary Manzer for a significant time about the lack of decision of the direction that the one-way would be going. South to north is the obvious direction, as I explained, due to cars using 2nd Street being used as a freeway, north to south, and afternoon traffic becoming a daily congestion issue. I continue to support one way. Let's see, where did I go? With the width not changing, parking and sidewalk on one side, and two-way traffic, I have real concerns about safety. I'm also looking for information about electrical lines being buried in the future. I have asked if the electrical lines were planned to be buried somewhere, I heard that rumor, on 2nd Street, extending the buried lines on 2nd Street from Becker to Minnesota down to Alena. If our sidewalks and boulevard ever get completed only to be dug up the following year,
Thank you.
I may be put over the edge.
Thank you for your comments. Staff, have we been communicating with Ms. Villars?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Gary has talked to her several times. And Gary has also mentioned that she should call him if she's got issues.
Okay. So our staff is aware of the concerns and are addressing it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have public hearings. Our first public hearing is an ordinance amending zoning ordinance allowing to rezone Lot 4 of Rockstep Plaza, second edition, from shopping center to general business. Mr. Walker, Planning Development Director. I'll open the public meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So just how we discussed kind of at the last council meeting was that this was a part of the outparceling of the Uptown Wilmer of the parking lot and to allow for development of some of the parking lot. And so this was outparceled, subdivided to make the way for a Slim Chicken's restaurant. And so this has kind of been an ongoing trend with the gym and other out parcels kind of along First Street. And so this is kind of conformed to the pattern of development that we've seen over the last several years. But I think as we kind of discuss and as I've made known to other parties within the Uptown Wilmer, is that the rezonings kind of after this kind of all need to be together. But this is just simply for them to continue the out parcels for the Slim Chicken rezone to take place. Now we can start that process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Calvin for any questions.
Okay, my understanding is that's because of the drive-through, correct?
Yes, correct. So the difference from the restaurants being allowed in the shopping center district and it needing to be rezoned to general business is because this is a drive-through.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Citizens, is anybody that wishes to speak? Again, this is a public hearing. Anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close it and bring it to the council table. Council, what are your wishes?
I'll make a motion to adopt, assign a number, and publish.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Nelson.
Just seeking clarification, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Calvin. So they will be responsible for their land, their lot, but it does nothing to how you get to their lot or get out of their lot with the rest of the parking lot.
No, so I guess kind of like the general egress and ingress of the lot was just kind of treated as the open parking lot, not necessarily like an access road. I guess there's there isn't even really an unofficial access road. It's just kind of into the parking lot.
Okay, so my other question is, there's some places out there that have created barriers so you cannot cross. Do we have any protection against that taking place all over the place there with what we're proposing?
No, so I guess if that were to happen, as far as like the design as a whole, I think one of the things that I've kind of imparted to staff and I've made clear to developers in the future is that their project, if it may work for them, that as a department, we make sure that their project kind of fits into the entire fabric. And so next time, like we get out parcel suggestion or a request, we'll look at everything and make sure that that won't happen. And so if that does happen, that's on the proposed plans that we will make a comment that it has to be removed and we won't approve it otherwise.
Is it in the documentation somewhere, or is it strictly just the conversation you'd have with?
No, so I guess just kind of like with all land development, there are certain things like that where not haggling, but just kind of going back and forth and saying, actually, this doesn't work. If you could change this, this will work better. And then kind of letting people know that even if your project may be ideal for you, it may not be ideal for the entire fabric of what we're looking at. And different parcels in town are subject to a different level of scrutiny. And so I think kind of like with that, just we'd make sure that everything that is out parcel fits into the quote of Uptown Wilmer. And so it's not in any documentation anywhere, but that is standard practice for how we conduct the plan reviews. And I think even the administrative plan review that doesn't go through planning commission.
I just request that to make sure that it's in the minutes that was your conversation with us, that it will be reviewed. So thank you.
Certainly.
Councilmember O'Brien.
I was looking at some of the drawings. Can you tell me where would the exit go for the drive-through? Where will that go?
So, like I said, like there isn't any like specific ingress or egress like to the site. Everything is just kind of within the parking lot. So that's just kind of how we treated it. That there wasn't like landscaping like mandated to kind of funnel that, kind of how it would be if it was like its own independent site. I'm trying to think, kind of like the McDonald's in town, like how it has its own site. But since it's just kind of exiting into a parking lot, that's just kind of how it's treated.
Okay, so we'll exit into the parking lot. basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, thanks.
Additional comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Osk,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 no.
That resolution passes. Next, I'd entertain a motion to publish by summary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to publish by summary. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 no.
That resolution passes as well. Mr. Walker, thank you for your work and making that happen, so we do appreciate that. Next, we have consideration of awarding sale of general obligation improvement bonds. Mr. Green with Baker Tilly.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If you give me 1 second to upload presentation. Okay. So this morning at 10 a.m., we took bids on behalf of the city. It's always, in this market, get a little bit nervous, but we did have a very successful sale. As you remember, we went out to overall about a $9.8 million project, only issuing bonds for about 5.5, 5.6 of that. You can see the other funding sources there, state aid funds of cash from the wastewater treatment plant, municipal utilities commission, and there's some stormwater projects in there, local option sales tax. As always, there's a premium. Those might be ending here going forward, but there's still a very small premium there. So in all, we are considering the issuance of $5,560,000 to finance the 2022 projects. We received 3 bids. We had 5 signed up. Sometimes they fall off for various reasons, but received 3 very strong bids. You can see they're very close. That tells us that they're good market rate bids. The winning bid was Northland Securities out of Minneapolis at a true interest cost, true interest rate at 3.1%, 3.10. See there along with Robert W. Baird, just right there together. The average maturity was 9.2 years, amortized over 15 years. That BBI, that bond buyer index, that's just an indice of the municipal market, kind of is a relative gauge of where the market is. So again, 3.1%, very good results. That you see, I mentioned the premium pricing. You can see that here. We allow them flexibility to meet their investors' needs. We have our funding needs too. We have those parameters set forth in the offering document. And you see in exchange for slightly higher coupons, they paid more than 100% of the cost, to the tune of $157,000. So that $157,000 goes into the construction fund. And it can be used for these projects, or if there's any, or for future debt service, or for similar projects in the future as well. That pricing results in the following debt service schedule. We're again amortize these over 15 years, 5.56 total 1.7 in interest, 1.7 million in interest. Remember, we have to levy 105% at least initially, or for this purposes, we have to show 105% going forward. If there's enough in the debt service fund, we don't have to continue to levy that additional 5%. The special assessment revenue is $235 per year, and so on average, that means the levy increase is around $270,000 per year. Again, it will be a little less because of that 5%, so probably closer to $260,000. I thought you'd be curious, just between 10 and 15 years, since this is the first year we've amortized the street projects over 15 years. This is somewhat of an estimate, but it's certainly very close to the ballpark because we don't know what we've gotten over 10 years. But again, this will put us very close into the ballpark. Our annual debt service payments for 15 years is about $479,000. 10 years would be $653,000. Slightly lower interest rate, but not that much. Certainly higher annual payments, estimated about $175,000. The assessment payments would be higher too, that the benefiting properties would pay. So on net, I would say this reduced, by amortizing it over 15 years, reduced the levy about $100,000 per year by doing that. So with each bond issue, the market does require a credit rating. The credit rating came back very strong at AA3. These are probably some bullets that you're familiar with. Exceptionally strong operating reserves, both in the general fund and within the enterprise funds. Strong financial management practices. The budget comes in, just about where you think it is. You don't have big wild swings in the budget to actual. Limited by, or compared to other AA communities throughout the country. So moderately sized tax base, which is which is typical of communities outside major metro areas. That goes along with the comparatively low residential incomes, again, compared to other communities. And increasingly, they're looking at ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Environmental would be, things like flood or out west water shortages. Thank goodness. Although I kind of feel like we're in a drought. My grass looks like it's in a drought. No environmental problems, social issues, and good governance. So no, because again, a credit rating is a gauge of your ability and willingness to pay. Obviously, you have the ability, but it's the willingness, and that's where the governance comes in. So, no concerns, obviously, there. So, all in all, very good sale. Another good credit rating report, and I'd be happy to take any questions. And the resolution in front of you awards the sale of these bonds.
Hey, Council, what's your wishes? Looking to introduce a resolution to award the sale of $5,560,000 general obligation improvement bonds, Series 2022A, fixing their form and specifications and directing the execution, delivery, and providing for their payment. So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Green, thank you for the good report. It's nice to see that our bond rating is holding firm. I know there was some questions on that when we were looking at going out over the 15 years.
Right.
And over the 15 years, it looks like it's favorable to the taxpayer to do that. It ends up costing a little bit more money, but the cost on a per monthly or annual basis is considerably less for that taxpayer. So it's less financial impact to the taxpayer in only about $99,000, right around $100,000 additional bond fees, the way it looked. Or
well, the levy is about $100,000 less than it would be.
Well, less than.
Right. By amortizing over 15 years, we're spreading out those payments, so the net impact to the levy is about $100,000 less.
Okay.
By going out 15 years, as opposed to 10.
Okay, great. Well, that's even better news than I thought. So,
Right.
anyways, okay, good. And I guess if there's no questions from council, are you ready to vote? Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 no.
That resolution passes as well. Next is the consideration of a lease agreement for a country music festival at Robbins Island. Mr. Baumgartner, our Park and Rec Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, member of the council. Tonight's action will be to approve the lease agreement with Studio 38 LLC for a country music festival 2022 to be held at Robbins Island on September 10th, 2022. Back in May of 16, Steve Pepin approached the council to address his wishes about putting a country music festival at Robbins Island on the September 10th date. It was at that time, council approved the concept of it and to work with staff, developing an agreement. Staff worked with other department heads, from fire to the police department with public works to develop a game plan for how the concert would function at Robbins Island. That plan has now been talked to the city attorney Scott, and we came up with a lease agreement that we as department and Mr. Pepin and his team has mutually agreed to. Some of it will be with the financials. I apologize. The $12,000 deposit is a little bit misleading on what the car report says to what the agreement actually is. The $12,000 is a cost estimate from what it would be for the fire department.
You said a $12,000 deposit. Did you mean a $12,000 fee?
$12,000 fee, yes.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry. $12,000 fee would be for hard costs for city for, if it's the fire department, the police department, public works to be out there. That was an estimate. In the agreement, it does say that if those fees are less, that would be reimbursable back to the owner. So we looked at it like if the concert's smaller and there's not as much police officers that need to be there and the bill comes into $10,000, we felt like that would be fair, that would go back to him. But we do have it that if the bill is larger, we have a $10,000 damage deposit for any overages in staffing costs or any type of repairs that need to be happen at the island. And then there would be a $1 per ticket surcharge for every ticket that is brought in. So that's comp tickets, giveaways or anything like that, up to $5,000. And that would be actually how I would consider it. That would be our rental fee for using the park. All of our costs would be covered. We have a $10,000 damage deposit for any mishaps that happen out there. And then we get the $1 per ticket surcharge. During that time, we addressed it with Mr. Pepin and his team, and it was agreed upon. But during that time also, Mr. Pepin has applied for the mayor candidacy. So there's a problem with the title of the event as far as Pep Fest goes, and it's the legal advice and the staff's recommendation that the name of the venue or the concert should be changed. So I would open it up for any questions.
Okay, so let me go through this a little bit, just how I understood how you said it. So there'd be a one-time fee of $12,000 that would be for the expenses. There would be a $5,000 fee for the rental of the park from the way you said it. And then there would be a $10,000 deposit.
Yes, it would be up to $5,000. So if he only brings in 4,000 people, it would be a $4,000 rental fee. So it's $1 per ticket.
Okay. Council, what are your wishes? If you have questions, we can take questions first, but generally we like to have a motion. See if there's an appetite.
I'll make a motion to approve the lease.
Motion made and seconded to approve the lease with Studio 38 LLC for a Country Music Festival 2022 to be held at Robbins Island on September 10th. Discussion. Councilmember Osmus, followed by Osk, followed by Davis.
Okay. I was part of a discussion where there was also the suggestion that there would also be a rental fee on the buildings.
Yep, that is part of it.
So is
They have
that in addition,
$500.
or is that part of the 5,000?
No, it's above that. So it's $500 for him to rent out the shelters that day.
Okay.
But
Councilmember Osk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Precedent, okay? So I just want to throw the situation out. A couple weeks ago, I had a birthday party, rented out one of the park shelters through both of my daughters, like a joint birthday party with about 15 of their friends. So I'm assuming that next summer, I can shut the entire island down for a 2-day birthday party for my daughters. I'll pay you $500 for the shelter closure, and I'll charge each of their 15 guests $1 for a ticket, giving the city $515. I don't need the police department or Parks or Rec to do anything. So that would be the precedent we're setting? It's a rhetorical question, right? But I'm very concerned that we're shutting down a city park to have a for-profit concert. It's 2 days over a weekend. I'm guaranteeing there's going to be numerous people who are inconvenienced by trying to bring their families to the playground to play, Frisbee. It's a very busy park. And I think that ultimately the the amount the city is getting back for it is pretty small. And even if it was larger, we're still shutting down a city park that taxpayers have paid for a for-profit concert. I'm uncomfortable with the precedent.
Councilmember Davis.
I'm wondering regarding the name, is there appetite to change the name? Because, you know, on the contract, under number 4, prohibited uses, it talks about political uses, and it seems to me if it's called Pep Fest, that's pretty much a campaign event.
I would almost defer to Robert on that.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. That's been a topic that we've discussed with the applicant for this use. Our recommendation is that the name of the event change and not be Pet Fest as initially contemplated when this was presented to the council in May. And as drafted, this agreement would require that name change. That would be found in Exhibit B, which relate to the advertising standards, which would prohibit the event from being named after any living person. And I would just add, I think the main reason, although it may be a good sort of practice for the city to implement if it's going to be in, pursuing allowing events like this to take place at this or other parks. But then the impetus for that recommendation is that the licensee or the applicant in this case obviously filed for city office after the council gave the concept approval of this event. And staff's direction to us, which we support, is that staff was not comfortable with this being, this event being perceived as related to any sort of political campaign. I believe that would be the advice that would be in the staff position, no matter what candidate was involved. Certainly we support that. And in addition to the name change issue, we included language in paragraph 4 of the agreement that specifically states the city's position and expectation that this event be conducted as an entertainment event and not a political event. We've had discussions with the applicant and his team, and they have agreed to follow those principles. So the agreement before you would require that the name of the event be changed and that it be operated on a non-political basis.
Councilmember Plowman, followed by Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just a little bit concerned also regarding precedent, but it seems as though we're in a little bit of a gray area because with regards to the name, I mean, the legalities of it being a political event, that's certainly understandable. With regards to the actual naming, the reason it's a gray area for me is because it's not actually a full name and it's kind of a play on words. And because the for part of the actual name itself could be an adjective or a noun, I feel as though it could possibly fall into a gray area. And I agree with 110% with the fact that this should not be at all a political event whatsoever. But I'm curious, if there is past precedent, based on other events or based on other, names that have been used and whatnot, and how detrimental this might be to the event itself this far along the process to all of a sudden change the name if it's, already being advertised, if it's been advertised, and what kind of message that might send to future, promoters in terms of Wilmer's appetite for events such as these, if we're going to start, picking through the rules and how we apply them.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. I just was seeking clarification that the document as it was reviewed has been agreed upon by, that the lease agreement has been agreed upon by both parties as it was presented to us. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. The agreement that's in your packet is the one that we agreed to.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember O'Brien.
In the line of what Councilman Osk was saying, we've had a lot of events in our park. And a lot of them have been musicals. Have we shut down the entire park to do those?
For Rockin' Robbins, pretty much.
Okay, how about the others?
Like Rib Fest?
Yep.
They're not as large as what this event would be or what Rockin' Robbins would be, but they do have a section of the area that they do use for.
Okay, there's been others there too.
Yep, there's been walk and runs and everything that
Right.
they pay the $300 walk run permit, and that does shut the island down for that period of time.
I just have a clarifying question. So during Rockin' Robbins, no one's allowed on the playground?
They can't drive in there. Now, if they use the trail on the backside to walk in, they can surely do that, but it's not open per se for people just to drive their cars in and then go to the park.
Couldn't they drive in and park in one of the parking spots? I mean,
If they can get into it, I mean, they
well,
could.
that's anything. It's like parking downtown. If there's no places to park, you can't park.
Well, then they're going to have to walk across the street, or they're going to have to go park in Hadeen and walk on the trail to use the playground. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but if the parking lot's full, there's.
I didn't know that Rockin' Robbins would not allow you to go play on the playground if you parked in the parking lot.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if the parking lot is full, it's going to be hard for people to go to and play in the playground. Because I'm sure kids are, during Rockin' Robbins, they're playing in the playground.
Just comments. Councilmember Davis.
I think the difference here is that Rockin' Robbins is free, so anyone who goes there can go anywhere on the island. This Pep Fest is a ticketed event, so you cannot go there unless you buy a ticket, correct?
Correct. So they'll have it fenced off.
Councilmember Osk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for city staff. Has there been any consideration of a larger fee? Again, when you're taking into account that you're basically leasing the entire island for 2 days.
It's only for September 10th.
The lease agreement seemed to
They
oscillate
have a-
noon to Sunday?
They have to clean up by noon on Sunday, so it's out of there.
Okay, so if I come to the park at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning,
The fence may still be up, yes.
okay, so I'm still fenced out of the public park.
You would still have access to the park, the parking lot, and that area would be open for people to still travel through.
Okay. So back to the original question then, has there been consideration of a larger kind of flat fee for, if you want to lease the entire island for a day, it is $10,000, $20,000?
As what council wishes. This is new for us, so we're trying to which way is the best way to approach this. And so if it's the council's wishes to have a higher fee, then,
My question is, has the staff discussed a higher fee?
well, with my other dealings with other concert events, the $1 per ticket has been a standard. There's also where you can do a percentage, but talking with it over, the $1 per ticket is more of a standard that other communities have done. But you can definitely say it's a flat fee if you want to close the whole island down for a certain amount of time. It's just, what are we going to do forward too? I mean, setting it up for if other events come like this into Robbins Island, what are we going to do?
And I'll say, I agree with Councilmember Davis as well, that I think it's considerably different from Rockin' Robbins in the sense that it's a for-profit concert as opposed to that you have to purchase a ticket to attend, that you're fenced off from even viewing, versus open to the public, free, and the proceeds come right back into the community. I see it as being considerably different.
That has been expressed to the group.
Councilmember Osmus.
I think, not to belabor that point, but I think it all comes back to it. Those other events, it's not shut down. You can say for all intents and purposes, it's shut down, but it really isn't. because they can access the whole park. Whether it's, yeah, there's been funerals out there, they can still access the park. The Rib Fest, they can still access the park. Just a clarification, and I was looking through it, the boat landings.
That has been addressed with the DNR. I talked to Colin Wright, and he's in agreement that the boat landings could be closed down for a day. This needs to have proper notice ahead of time and to be posted.
Okay. Because I know there had been some discussion about people then just launching the boats to listen to the music.
Yep.
Okay.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that $12,000, that's not a fee just to rent the island. We're taking police and fire
Cost out.
salaries off that?
Yep, that was the estimate that we received from the department's head about what they thought the event would cost the city.
I'd prefer to have a flat fee, and then the cost of personnel is over and above. Plus so much per ticket. And if an individual wants to rent Perry Anderson or the new shelter or any of the other ones, isn't there a per day?
Yes.
That's more than $500, isn't it?
No, it adds up to 500.
You can rent that new building
You can rent the Four Seasons for 130, Gurry for 110.
for all day?
Yes.
Okay. And then the boat landing, is that both of them then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional comments? Councilmember Plowman, followed by Councilmember Osk again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, yeah, I just want to get my thoughts around this because this is kind of a new thing for us, but I feel the need to play devil's advocate here because I empathize with staff because we're charting in uncharted waters, so to speak. I mean, this isn't something that comes in front of us all the time, so this is an excellent opportunity to create policy and give us a launch point for then tweaking the policy. But I just don't want to lose sight of the fact or the goal or the idea that this is something that this is good policy to have because these are the things that we want to be happening in Wilmer. And I understand and I appreciate certainly the events that are nonprofit or free community events that are open to the public. But also it's a great thing that, when entrepreneurs want to bring in private for-profit events, I think, successful communities are full of individuals that are willing to take the risk and do that. And we talk about costs and we talk about fees. And I understand that creating a methodology for establishing those fees is necessary. But the one thing that I've got to continue to remind myself as well is that because it is a for-profit event, immediately people think, well, this is going to be the cost structure should be higher and this and that and whatnot. But it's easy to forget that if the event is to be a flop, there would be that much more money lost. And so therein comes the risk. So I think with regards to the fact that it's a city property, I guess we have to do our due diligence on what is reasonable. How do we walk that line between what's reasonable and not reasonable? I don't want to say fair and unfair because I guess I don't believe in fairness, but I think just what's reasonable is a good way to put it because we do want private entities, we do want private entrepreneurship, and we want capital venture. We want events that people are willing to put their money on the line, and they could do great. There is that inherent risk that they could not do so great. So I don't think, or at least myself, I would like to be careful as a policy crafter to not create a policy initially that's so cost prohibitive that it would scare away potential investors from wanting to take these kind of risks in communities. And I think, again, I'll say it, somebody willing to put private dollars on the line for a community event that could make them money or could cost them a lot of money, I don't think we should overlook that. And I'm appreciative of it, and I'm appreciative of the discussion around it. I think it's good, healthy discussion to have. And I appreciate staff's time in evaluating all of this.
Hey, Councilmember Osk, city attorney has been wanting to get in. Can I go to him first?
Please.
Thank you, Mayor.
City
I'll try to be
Attorney
brief.
Scott.
There was a question asked previously about, has the applicant agreed to the recommended name change for the event? And I want to be clear, I believe my understanding is that the applicant still would prefer to call it Pep Fest, and has stated that position, and has sort of said he'll follow whatever the council decides today. Our recommendation has been that the name change, and that is the way the agreement is drafted, but I just wanted to not misstate the applicant's position tonight. I think the other thing, just quickly for the council's consideration, obviously, this is a unique request because it's asking you to allow a use of your park that you haven't previously allowed and that you don't have an existing policy for, to allow it to be really closed to the public for what's a private event, even with all the benefits that might still bring to the community. So there has been discussion between our office and staff about, if this event is approved, bringing forward a policy so that you're not always in the same position of having to invent the wheel when you get a request like this. And that policy could involve, limitations on the frequency or the total number of times it could happen. Any of the questions you're concerned about could be fleshed out in that policy. Just something that I want you to be aware of that we have been talking about, in light of our experience with this request. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Osk.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the financial part of the lease agreement, and I imagine that's going to kind of have to be filtered out throughout the lease. So I'd like to charge a flat fee for the day of $10,000. Additionally, then the amount paid to the city staff, the police department, the fire department, public works, that would be in addition to the $10,000 fee. And then damage deposit stays, per ticket stays. But that, for the shelter, to basically close off the entire island for a private event, $10,000 a day. Is that worded
Plus city
appropriately,
costs.
Mr. Scott? Or
Plus the city costs?
plus the city cost if you're going to use city staff, then that would be in addition to the $10,000.
And the $1 per ticket surcharge?
Correct.
I want to make sure staff has this first before we move forward. We've got it? Okay. So we have an amendment, and I would need a second to the amendment.
Second.
Motion been seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Tallman.
I have concerns with this. I can envision next year, for example, say a large national franchised automobile organization wants to hold a massive car show at Robbins Island. Are we gonna ask for $10,000 then to hold that show? Is that something that we would not want?
The way I heard the motion, and I won't speak for the motioner, but how I heard it said, is that if you want the entire island and you want to close it down so the rest of the public has no access to it, it'd be $10,000 plus expenses. That's what I heard the motion as.
Correct.
Or the amendment as.
Private event.
Private event. You have a follow-up?
No, I'm whispering out loud to process, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I think I'm going to vote against the amendment. I think this was negotiated by staff with them. We've made some substantial changes. We've talked about next time around having a policy. And I think to support this as is an okay place for us to start and then to review it and to come up with a policy for other events. I do believe that we will be asked for other music events by other people. And so I think before we set a precedence, maybe since this was negotiated, that we allow this to take place and do a review. If it didn't work, then we're done. And if it did work, then we can come back and review it. But I think the recognition for the community too is that the costs for police and the figures are the same, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit group. And so I think we need to be careful as we set precedents with what we're doing for our community. All the events are good for our community. And so I think I would like to see us go forward with the lease as negotiated and then have a good council review of what took place and develop that policy for the future.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Butterfield.
So with Robbins, no, there's no parking out there for people. So now are we gonna tell Robbins, okay, you gotta leave 50% of the parking lot for people access to park?
No.
Because they're not paying the city anything, you know, they're not gonna pay $10,000 to host a free concert. And if people wanna go to the park, they should have access parking right at the park. That's one thing I'm seeing now, that this could turn the tables on Robbins.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Osmus.
I guess I was trying to put it into perspective of comparing it to Sunshine. I was thinking, okay, in that particular instance, we closed down the Civic Center and all of that property and the high school. That's kind of the same thing, the way I see it. And we didn't charge them $10,000. They paid for the fees, they paid for medical and overtime and public works, work that they did. I'm guessing they had to rent the Civic Center. Do you
I
remember?
believe so. Yep, and then they closed off the school for the showers and the swimming pool for swimming.
Right, and then paid them for the overtime and the
Yep.
staff to clean that. So it isn't that we haven't totally shut down to the public venues for anybody to come in, but it's the first time for Robbins Island.
Additional comments or questions to the amendment? Councilmember Davis.
If it's to the amendment, then I don't have a comment.
To the amendment. Okay, so the amendment reads, someone help me over there.
As I have it recorded, the amendment would be to change the financial provisions of the agreement in paragraph 7 so that there be a flat fee of $10,000 charged to the licensee for the closure of the park to the public, in addition to reimbursement for the city for its staff time related to facilitating this event, and the other financial provisions listed already in paragraph 7.
Did you include the $500? I didn't write that down if you did.
My intention was to leave the $500 out. I believe that would then be included in the rental of the entire island.
So the $5 fee, or the $1 fee up to 5,000 was left in, but not the rental fee of the buildings.
Okay.
That's
Thank
the
you
way
for the
that I wrote it
clarification.
now. Okay. Okay, so now we all understand the motion? Are we ready to vote? All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
I have 5-3.
Could do a show of hands, please.
Roll call?
Councilmember Osk.
Aye.
Davis.
No.
Plowman.
No.
Nelson.
No.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
No.
Butterfield.
No.
O'Brien.
Aye.
3 yes, 5 nay.
the amendment fails. Back to the original motion. Councilmember Davis.
I feel like since there's not most likely going to be a name change for the event, I really can't back it because I feel like as an elected official, I would be endorsing a candidate, and I really can't do that. So that's just the way I feel about it.
Okay. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. My understanding is that part of the lease agreement is the name will change. Whether, I mean, that's how we're presenting it to them, is we are requiring them to change the name. That's what we're agreeing to in the lease.
Mayor and council is correct, has drafted this lease in your packet that has been moved for approval. I should say the license agreement in your packet that's been moved for approval would require the name to change. If the council desired to accommodate the applicant's request, it would need to give us direction to that effect. So without giving that direction, the name under this agreement would be required to be changed.
Additional comments or questions? Mr. Peppin, you had raised your hand that you wanted to speak. You have something to speak to the question. And then I guess more importantly, are you amicable to the name change?
I am not. But first of all, I think it's really important to know that I sat down with the city, and I don't want to cause problems between city and council because I think we've seen some of that, and that's not what I stand for. I'm just going to ask a question. Has anyone seen a sign up for me for mayor yet, or any type of advertising for me running for mayor? Absolutely not, because I gave Rob my word that I would not do anything with the mayor stuff until after Pet Fest. That was 5 days after I announced for mayor. Rob called me a few days later and said that things have changed now with you doing that. I said, what has changed? He said, well, now you're running for mayor. I said, you can call a lawyer today and let him know that I won't do anything to do with the mayor until after Pet Fest, because this is a dream, and this is about giving this community something special, a lot bigger than any mayor could ever give. The mayor thing's just a title, something that I do not need. So Pep Fest is a brand that started in 2012. If you guys are asking me to shut down a brand, to shut down a business that I started a long, long time ago, if I do that, I might as well start all over. We might as well cancel what my team and I put together and look at next year. If that's the case, what if I am mayor next year? No, we can't do that. There's just so many tangibles there that I would much rather, I could see myself not doing the mayor if it meant I got to stick to my dream, a dream that I've had for over 10 years. I asked the council to understand that this has nothing to do with political campaign. Absolutely not. This has everything to do with a dream and showing people what you can accomplish if you put your mind to it. It has absolutely nothing to do with mayor and me being Pep. I mean, Pep rally, Pep as people engaging people. That's what I do. That's what I stand for. And that's what this is about. And you will not see anything to do with the mayor thing until after Pep Fest, if I'm granted my wishes. I'll take on all the responsibilities of all the financials, but I refuse to change the brand. It's nothing to do with ego. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with a brand that is really strong, and it's strong in this community, and it cares about this community.
Mr. Peppin, you bring up an important point. I mean, you do have a brand, and I mean, you have carried your brand. You and I have met many times, and you've talked about your brand to me in the past, and I know that that's important to you. And you have done good things in this community. You really have. And I don't think any of us are diminishing the things that you've done. Your wrestling events, your MMA events, just stuff you do just as a guy, right? Just your sign out in front of your business your last 2 weeks ago that you put up about the Candy Elite volleyball team. I mean, you didn't have any vested interest in putting that sign out there. You did it because you were proud of the community you serve and you work in. But this whole thing changes. One of the conversations you and I had, I said, when you're the mayor, things change. Things are different. People look at things differently. And I think you're hearing some of that here now of that is a little bit different. I remember a conversation that city attorney and city administrator and I had with Councilmember Plowman when he first was elected. And some pretty gut-wrenching things that you had to deal with, and which came evident the awards that we did for the recreation fields. And I hope you don't mind me saying that. I mean, you were transparent. You told the people right up front, hey, this was stock that was in, I mean, I don't have a financial gain off of this transaction. And, some of that you can't do when you're mayor anymore. So what does it mean for next year? I mean, if you're elected, that's a big deal. And I think your city attorney is going to have some real issues with that. And I think what the council is trying to do is say, we want to set good public policy going forward on something that we can support and get behind no matter who's sitting in this chair. And it's tough. It's really tough. It's really tough.
I understand that. Do we have a legal matter here? Is there a legal matter on this, or is it just a perception or something what something looks like?
Well, I don't interpret law. We have an attorney to do that. So thank goodness I'm not going to answer that. But I know that there are things that happen in regards to once you hold a public office. So, Mr. Scott, do you want to address that?
Of course. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. To be clear, this is not a legal matter. You are not prohibited from allowing this event to go forward under the name PepFest as the applicant desires. It's a recommendation to you from staff and our office. I appreciate the conversations we've had with the applicant's team on this point, and I respect their right to make their request directly to the council. The reasoning for our recommendation and the way this agreement is drafted and in the packet is it gets more to, and not intent, I take the applicant completely at his word. Everything he's told you tonight, I think he's told us and staff in conversations on this, and I believe that to be the case. But it's regardless of intent, I think there's a name recognition benefit to having an event that has your name or a component of your name in it, for a name that's associated with you. And when you're a candidate for local office, that would have the effect of increasing your notoriety and name recognition, which can absolutely be impactful in a race. Having said that, it's a judgment decision. That's our recommendation, but the council will not be doing anything illegal if the council decides you'd rather allow the name to go forward as originally proposed. The only real legal consideration would then be kind of a matter of equal time. If you get a similar request during this campaign season from another candidate, it would be difficult for the city, and you might not legally be able to deny that request. But I mean, it is within the power of the council and authority of the council to make its decision on this issue one way or the other.
Okay. So I'm going to go to the example that Councilmember Osk brought to us in his opening comments. If the other candidate chose to rent the facility for $500 and have 15 guests show up and pay $1 per person for $515 and not want any city services or not want anything done other than just a barricade put at the gate, he could do so. Either of the other two candidates could do so.
Well, certainly you would need to grant similar access to your facility that you granted to this candidate if it goes forward and there's the name of the event is associated with a candidate, whether intended that way or not. I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer every hypothetical right now, but what's like for like and what the outcome of that specific hypothetical would be, we'd have to look at it. But there would be a fairness issue for sure, and an issue of the city having granted use of its facility that it owns to one candidate and needing to come up with a way to treat the other candidate fairly.
I'm not sure that Councilmember Osk had said a candidate. I thought the Councilmember Osk had said a citizen. I think that's a big difference.
It is a big difference. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Yeah, no, I'm saying specifically an individual.
I don't think, for outside the realm of, fairness within a political campaign context, I don't think that by approving a use of your park one time for one event, you are required then legally to approve a use of the park again. You could reasonably conclude that this, whatever the perceived public benefit of allowing this use didn't materialize, or there were unintended consequences, you could certainly adjust course and reevaluate whether you want to do events like this again going forward. Obviously, that raises the need, I think, for a policy once you allow a use like this. But no, I don't think you've foreclosed the possibility of denying future requests, even very similar requests, if the council decides that's what it wants to do with its facility.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rosk.
Just a question, Mr. Scott. Regardless of the name, if there's a candidate that's active in that event, is there any kind of, requirement then for equal time at that event or in another similar situation where the city would, have to provide other candidates that same opportunity?
I think that would be an easier question to answer after the event, and we can see how successful we were in the strategy and implementing the direction to keep this an apolitical event. But in theory, this event, as contemplated in this license agreement, would not be political. It would not be named after a candidate. So no, I don't believe the answer would be that you would be legally required to approve this, a similar request from another candidate if it's successfully pulled off as a non-political event.
Thank you. And Mr. Pepin, I just wanted to say to you, thank you for your service to the community and for the way that you do promote a lot of good in the community. I'll vote against this tonight because I'm concerned about precedent and because I have concerns about shutting down Robbins Island to the public, this great regional park, but it is no reflection of you or the great things that you do here in Wilmer. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Butterfield, followed by Osmus, followed by Nelson.
Is there a way we could hold off on having Mr. Pepin change the name until after the primary? We're not even primary yet. We don't even know who would be in contention. There's 3 of them out there running for mayor. Primary is in August. This is in September. Is there a way we could hold off on making him change the name or anything till after the primary and let it go as is?
Mr. Butterfield, yeah, that's a good question, and I mean, I'll ask Mr. Pepin that in a minute, but when he came to us originally, he wanted us to turn this rather quickly because he's got to do marketing. I mean, he can't wait until he finds out you'd have to wait until after the Board of Canvass. The Board of Canvass is generally either later that week or the next week. So now you're into the 3rd week of August. I mean, you're 3 weeks before the event, and he hasn't done any marketing because he can't say anything yet. So I think that would be hard for Mr. Pepin, but I'll defer to him if he wants to answer the question.
Actually, a ton of marketing and advertising has happened since the day that I was told yes by the council. Obviously, we had some things that you guys wanted us to fix first, but we're $77,000 into this. This isn't something that can wait any longer. This is something that started 10 years ago, and I'm 54 days away.
Sure. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Osmus, followed by Nelson.
Okay. I have appreciation for the brand. Okay, your business is Peps, but which was your business before you put in for office. And I just have I have an issue with this event being called that in with the office thing. It's a country music festival, and I don't see its success or failure being on if it's called Pep Fest or not. That, to me, that doesn't make somebody want to buy a ticket to go to this event because it's called Pep Fest. They're going to the event because of the music and the venue, and it's going to be great. And I think it's great to bring something like that to town. But in lieu of the election, I just don't feel like it can be called that. We wouldn't have Marv Fest, for a country music festival coming to town. And so I don't think at this point with the election, just like what the mayor was saying, things change when you run for office and what you can and can't do. I still want to see this go forward. I still want this to be a success. But I think it has to be a different name.
Okay, is there any, I respect that, Julie, thank you. Is there any suggestions on what I should do for a website? And, I think we're at 2,500 flyers that are in 5 counties. Like, what do we do? How do we change that narrative? Okay, and if we do have to change that narrative, what do we do with everything that's already out there? Still called Pep Fest. The signs are all out. Everything's, my guys hit the street running as soon as we got the green light, and we haven't stopped. We actually, out of respect to the city of Wilmer, I didn't want to go through the parade. So like this community didn't get the parade because I didn't want to walk through the parade, basically saying I'm going to do what I want. Now, did I go to Spicer? Absolutely. After I talked to several different people and they guided me in the direction, well, there isn't a contract yet, so go ahead. So I did that. So like everybody knows it as the brand Pep Fest. I don't know what to do to change it. So you're asking me to do a lot.
Okay, thank you for answering the question. I'm going to try to keep the conversation here, but if there's questions for you, if you're willing to stay, stay there, that's fine. If there are more questions, but have your questions short, and then, if the council has suggestions for you, they'll give those to you, but to ask the council questions, maybe should be more directed through the mayor and then to the
Understood.
council members. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Calvin. I still am ready to vote for the agreement as presented with the name change. I think the music festival can be a success, whatever the name is, and I don't know what you need to do to change that. But I do think you will make it a success and that this will be better for you as a candidate for the mayor and better for the city of Wilmer as we look to that event and look to the election. And so I believe that as it's presented is how we need to vote for it.
No comments or questions? Councilmember Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to see this event happen for the city of Wilmer because I want to promote the city of Wilmer's openness to events and to exciting things happening and ideas and stuff like that. I'm going to vote in favor even regardless of the name change, and the reason that's a little, I think we all know that regardless of whether Mr. Pepin was running for mayor or not, this would be the name of the event, or the name that he had chosen is likely what he would have called it anyways. So that's the difficulty with it. But I am supportive of the event, and I want to see it be a success, and I guess I wouldn't want to see anything derail that. So I hope that's not the case here.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember O'Brien, followed by Butterfield.
The mayor had mentioned, things will change in the political arena. If Mr. Pepin was elected mayor, and the mayor mentioned this, if he was elected, would the PEP still be your trade band? Would it still be your name? Could he still do that as the mayor? I'm bringing that to the mayor because he brought that up.
That's up to the candidate. It's not up to the mayor. I mean, I brought that up as those are things that happen. I mean, when you do your candidacy for office, I remember when I did my candidacy for office, Mr. Halliday sat down and had a long conversation with me about what you can do and what you can't do.
I'm speaking after he becomes mayor. Can he still use the brand?
I don't know that. I mean, the council couldn't
No, I
I'm going
know.
to go to my legal counsel.
Yeah, I mean, Mayor, Council, since it has come up now in this discussion, we have at least broached this issue with the applicant about the prospect that his campaign could succeed. And I understand this is intended to be a recurring annual event. So will that create problems for future events? And the answer is it certainly will. There's a general statutory prohibition against any elected member of the council having a personal financial interest in any contract that the council approves. So this certainly could not come forward in the hypothetical scenario where the applicant is the mayor next year in this form. We have started looking at, again, this could be another benefit of getting a policy in place. If there's a policy in place where the council isn't exercising its discretion and it's just kind of self-executing because you have the procedures in place, that might be a way to allow an event to go forward. But I do still think that name, as proposed, would be an issue if the applicant is sitting in the mayor's chair for this event in future years.
Is your question?
That's my answer.
Mr. Butterfield?
Well, I know he can't get his name off the ballot right now. That time's passed, but if he would suspend his run for mayor, can he come back and say, after tomorrow, after thinking it over, saying, hey, I spent $77,000 on this. I want to stay with this Pep Fest. I want it to come back next year, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, and run it off of Pep Fest. Is being mayor more important than running Pep Fest? If he come back tomorrow and said, I'm suspending my run for candidacy, I'm dropping out, then are we going to allow him to come back again and mark it as Pep Fest?
Mr. Peppin, in respect to you, I'm going to take a recess from the council. We've got a motion on the floor, but I'm going to take a recess right now so that you can talk with your people. And I have an opportunity to visit candidly with the city attorney. And I want to do that one-on-one with the city attorney because I think we have a lot of things that have come to the table. But I think you talk with your staff, see what you want to do here. What I'm hearing is that there's not a palette for the name change. I haven't taken that vote yet. If you wanted me to take that vote first before we went into recess, I would do that. But I'm going to take a vote. I'm going to take a recess prior to taking a vote on whether we approve this agreement or not.
Recess
What would
is
you
fine.
prefer?
Recess is fine, thank you.
Okay, we're in recess. This is very difficult to take a recess when we have a motion on the floor, but this is a situation that is different than what we had before, where it really has a lot of tails to it, if you will. So thank you for allowing me that privilege. Mr. Peppin, kind of what we've heard is that there is support for your event, and people really believe that your event will really be a good thing for this community. I think of the good things that can happen and come out of it. You've already said you spent about $77,000 on advertising, those types of different things. You've got expenses that you've already made. But I'm just wondering, is there any consideration for the name change? Do you have any consideration for that at all, or is that pretty much a showstopper?
Because of the branding, we prefer to keep it Pep Fest.
Okay.
We did agree to put it to the council's disposal.
Correct, okay. Council, what are your wishes here? You guys ready to vote? Okay.
You read it.
So the way the motion is that to approve a lease agreement with Studio 38 LLC for a country music festival 2022 to be held at Robbins Island on September 10th, 2022. The agreement that you have in front of you requires a name change for the event to happen. And it's Exhibit B, if I remember correctly.
The language that would require that is in paragraph 4 and in Exhibit B to the agreement, correct?
So the council is understanding that if you approve this, then Mr. Peppin has to make the name change And then at that point, it's up to Mr. Peppin on what he does at that point, so. And Mr. Box, I'm going to go with a roll call right from the start. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Osk,
No.
Davis,
No.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
6 yes, 2 nay.
So the agreement has passed, but the agreement does require you to change the name.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is a consideration of an emergency ordinance to enact a moratorium for the sale of THC products within the city. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item was prepared late last week. This is in response to a change to state statute that allowed for edible and otherwise consumable products that have less than 0.3% THC, a cannabis product.
Ms. Valiant, do you have a handout for this for us?
It was placed in front of you prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
The emergency ordinance along with the agenda report.
Agenda item number 12.
Oh, they were sitting on this end, sorry.
Oh,
It's the whole thing.
What's the whole thing?
Yep.
O'Brien had two.
Okay.
Do we have?
You have any more?
does everybody have one?
Does everybody have one?
Should have one.
Do you have one?
Oh, here it is.
I'll find it.
It would be packeted together with your bonding resolution that was heard earlier. That was placed in front of you as well.
Go ahead. I'll find it.
You go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So I will take a little more time on this one since it was not in your packet and walk through it. It's one of 2 pages. This item is in response to a recent change to state law. It took effect on July 1st. And if you've seen any coverage, it was kind of surprising to a lot of people that it was included in legislation that passed and that it took effect so quickly. But the legislation had the effect of allowing edible or consumable products with up to 0.3% of THC, a cannabis byproduct. Basically, the law said that those products are now legal. They were defined not to be controlled substances and therefore made legal for sale to adults in Minnesota, adults being age 21 or older. The state law had some requirements for packaging of these products, but did not otherwise regulate who could sell them, where they could be sold. And it appears the state law left room for cities to establish those regulations if they so choose. A lot of cities are looking at this right now. They're taking a variety of approaches, I think. What this ordinance before you is an emergency ordinance, which would streamline and speed up the process for it to take effect. Unlike normal ordinances, it would not need to be introduced, set for a public hearing. It would be, if the council approves it, passed tonight. It would require 6 votes, and it would take effect immediately at 1 a.m. tomorrow, and it would last in effect for no more than 60 days. The idea with this approach would be getting some basic requirements in place that regulate how these products could be sold until such time as we can craft a more specific and thoughtful licensing program. Most cities, I believe, are of the opinion that the best way to handle this issue would be to establish a licensing program that would license their sale in a similar way that tobacco products are frequently licensed. The major public health, public safety issue that this ordinance responds to would be these products are not yet legal for minors or actually anyone 21 or younger, up to 21. and they have not been found safe for children to consume. So this ordinance would get in place some basic parameters, basic requirements for how these products can be sold in the city. It would not make their sale illegal. It would say that any business engaged in selling these products has to follow certain requirements. And those requirements are set forth in section 3 of your draft ordinance, and I'll just run through them quickly. The first requirement is that before anyone can sell these products, they have to give notice to the city clerk that they are doing so and the location from which they are selling those products. It's sort of like a registration requirement, not a full-blown licensing requirement yet. Obviously, it would echo the state law requirement that products not be sold to anyone under the age of 21. It would require that these products not just be open and accessible in stores, that they be kept behind a counter, again, similar to the way many cities regulate the sales of tobacco, so that in order to purchase one of these items, a customer would need to presumably go to a counter, ask to be provided the item, you could verify that the customer is of appropriate age, et cetera. Also, it would require that the sales take place from a fixed business location, not anything that is movable. So those, I think, were the 5 requirements that staff had arrived at. With, again, with our help, we looked at what other cities are doing and recommended these restrictions be implemented on an emergency basis. The idea, again, being that a more comprehensive licensing ordinance would be brought forth for the council to consider as soon as possible.
Okay.
I would be happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry, I will, the recommendation is that the council approve the emergency ordinance and then approve publishing it by summary.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This came up rather quickly. I was in a meeting last Wednesday with the Minnesota mayors together, and this issue was brought to our attention. And a number of cities were working on this, and so I had asked staff to get working on it. And so they worked pretty diligently to get something in front of you guys for review tonight. But, I think that, Representative Baker has been on the radio talking about how difficult this is for him because of his opposition to addictive types of products. And basically that they were, the majority of the people were unaware that this was even in the bill. So, of course, that doesn't excuse anybody from having not read the bill and voting on something they hadn't read. I'm not giving an excuse here. I'm just saying that, there's a number of people that are upset about this. And so this emergency ordinance is in front of you for your consideration tonight. And again, it takes 6 votes to pass in order to make it happen. So discussion. Councilmember O'Brien.
Last week, right after this was passed, one of the businesses in our town had a big sign out in front of their business saying, we sell THC without prescriptions. How do they do that?
Well, I think the question in front of us is more, do we put this in place?
I know that, but I'm just saying, can they do that? I mean,
I believe under the state law, they were,
Mayor.
I'll refer again to legal counsel.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, if the product has amounts of THC that are less than 0.3 percentage of the product, I'm not sure how that's exactly that works, but there's a threshold in the law, and if the products they are selling are below that threshold, they are under the state law as of July 1st, legal products to be sold without a prescription.
Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Osmus.
Just a question. Did we have to shut somebody down that was selling out of a tent? Okay. My understanding, there was a temporary tent that was set up. Okay. First Street. Over in the parking lot of a business.
She felt, are you aware of that at all?
I can't confirm whether the police found anybody there or not. I saw some social media posting of somebody claiming to have been doing that, but to my knowledge, there were no tickets or arrests made anyway.
It was my observation that I thought somebody on First Street had a spot up almost like a fireworks display, but I thought that they had a sign up. I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, it was there.
That was what I heard.
It was there.
Yeah, we've got 2 council members saying that they saw it there, so we did have something there.
If there was, then they did not come in for their normal permit issuance that they would have had to do for a temporary site like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can
Mr. Walker?
confirm that. Yeah, I can confirm that. So all temporary tents have to go through our building official, and we did not approve any recently. I think the most recent temporary tent request that we had was for a 6-month setup operation for hail damage, not anything to do with THC sales.
Okay. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen, correct?
Yeah, at least didn't happen legally or through
Right.
like the regular process.
Right. Additional comments or questions? Councilmember Nelson.
This is maybe just a little different. I'm supportive of doing this emergency ordinance, but I know the league has some things out with lots of different categories about even employment and the use of it and those types of things. So will we be looking at those things in addition to the how it's going to be sold as far as other policies? Or is this strictly all we're talking about tonight, just how it's going to be sold?
No, I think we're talking about prohibiting it until staff comes back with a recommendation. Staff did send out an email from the League of Minnesota Cities today.
Yep.
That was sent out, so I would make the basic assumption that if they sent it to us, they're going to look at it. I don't think they just forwarded it to us. So-
Aren't we tonight establishing a process for people to come in and get permission to sell it?
No, we're stopping it.
We are stopping it. Okay.
We're saying they can't do it until we have a process established within 60
Thank you for
days.
that clarification.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, this,
Thought we were doing.
I do want to be clear, this ordinance does not prohibit the sale of these products.
Right.
This ordinance would impose some basic requirements for how they can be sold until a licensing requirement comes forward. This simply says they need to notify the city if they're going to sell these products and then meet these requirements in Section 3 of the ordinance before you. And it does require that they be in a permanent fixed location, so the sales for the, if this ordinance were to take effect, it would not allow the sales to be made out of movable tents or other, mobile facilities.
Well, that wasn't my understanding, but okay, I stand corrected. Additional comments? Are you ready to vote? Again, this takes 6 affirmative votes. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 nay.
That motion passes. Next is to publish by summary.
So move.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Published by summary has to be by roll call. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Butterfield.
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
Ask.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 nay.
That resolution, or that motion passes as well. Next, we have consideration of an agreement with Wilma School District for school resource officers. Chief Felt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Item before you tonight is for consideration for the school resource officer contract with the Wilmer Public Schools. For a little bit of a history is that the Wilmer School District is contracted with the Wilmer Police Department since 1994 for school resource officer duties. Back then it was 1 officer. Currently, they contract for 3 full-time officers and 1 3/4-time officers that cover the senior high school, middle school, area learning center, Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Lakeland elementary schools. Conversations took place between myself and Dr. Holm, along with City Administrator Valiant, and the proposal brought forth to the schools was a 2% increase, a 2-year contract, and a 2% increase the first year, from 2022 to 2023, and then a 3% increase for the following year of 2023-2024 school year. And those costs cover while the officers are serving at the schools for officers' time, wages, and benefits and that type of thing. If there's additional duties beyond that, like the school football games, hockey games, if there's an incident that happens at the school, they want an additional officer, they pay above and beyond for those services and are billed accordingly.
Okay, council?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman, followed by Osk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember when this position came up again in question regarding the officers placed in the school, and I can't say how happy I am that the council decided at that time to continue having the school resource officers. And over the years, multiple years, I've heard time and time again from various teachers and principals, vice principals, whatnot, what a valuable resource these officers are. So kudos to the department, and specifically these officers. A lot of times they have like the inside beat on what's going on with these kids, and a lot of times that early intervention is like paramount to anything else, and especially certain situations seems like they're really dialed in with the kids, and the kids have such a great interacting relationship going on with them. So I think it's a super valuable thing that are an asset for our community. And so hats off to the department and those specific officers. They have a good thing going.
Thank you.
Councilmember Osk.
Thank you. I will echo Councilmember Plowman's comments and just say that I was at a meeting earlier this afternoon with some executives from local nonprofits, and we were having conversations about how to respond and create programs to help out at-risk youth, at-risk children, all the different traumas that they can experience early on in their life that can have an adverse effect throughout their life. When the conversation was about what are the current resources, what are the current advantages we have in our community to engage with these problems, this was the first thing that got mentioned by numerous people at the table. And so thank you and to those officers for the important work that they do in helping our kids grow up well and being a good resource to identify and help those who are experiencing trauma.
Thank you.
Councilmember Osk was followed by O'Brien.
Was the 2% and the 3%, did that just basically mirror what the officers were getting in the contract?
The contracts are up for negotiations with the city this year, so it's it's an unknown.
Okay.
But that was just an agreement that Dr. Holm felt was fair. So.
Okay.
Councilmember O'Brien.
I'm going to bring you back a few years, Jim.
Uh-oh.
There used to be a program that was funded by the state. This was a long time ago. And I know you guys really struggled after that thing was canceled. What was the name of that? Do you remember? Maybe too far back.
Officers in the schools?
Yes. Yeah, they funded, this was a long time ago. But the question I have is, you guys have done such a marvelous job of, basically telling the people what this is about. This is the key. I know when I was on the school board, we heard accolades about your school officers in the room because they were always going the extra mile, not just because of something was wrong, but they were always trying to find something they could help with. And I think that's the key. And that's what they were doing constantly up there. You probably know who I'm talking about.
That's right.
So again, always same as everybody else, but I'll look up what I just talked about. It's way back.
Sounds
It
good.
would have to be more than 40 years.
It is.
Okay.
There's no comments or questions. Roll call.
Councilmember O'Brien.
Aye.
Osk.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Butterfield.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 nay.
That resolution passes. Thanks, Jim. Next, we have our Chief Phelps. Consideration of review committee members for the broadband RFP. Mr. Walker, our Planning Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So last council meeting, I think we presented just the idea of approving an RFP selection committee. And tonight before you, I have the list of the 8 members. It was a bit, kind of on like a wild goose chase trying to track down the final member for the citizen from the Cable Commission. Thankfully, someone that I knew personally had their personal phone number because I couldn't track him down any other how. So I gave him a call and he was like, yeah, I'm retired, so I think I can make this work. So that's Larry Fouillon. But yeah, the names are kind of as presented in front of you. So I'll read those. Councilmember Thomas O'Brien, Thomas Butterfield, Councilmember Michael O'Brien, Dave Sisser of the Candy High Broadband Committee, Larry Fouillon, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Cable Advisory Committee, Dave Hillenbrand, Webmaster, Jerry Redka, the IS Coordinator, Kyle Box, Operations Director, and then myself. So that's going to be the 8-member RFP Selection Committee. I guess any questions?
Hey, council, what's your wishes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Consider an adoption of the budget calendar for 2023. Mr. Okins, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before you tonight is a proposed budget calendar. I believe Mayor Calvin met with Administrator Valiant the beginning of July and established this calendar. As you see, the charter, a couple sections require the mayor to submit a budget and a message per state law to the city council. The budget calendar itself is not a requirement of state law or the charter, but has been past practice so that staff and the general public know a timeline of and what to expect as far as when those numbers are proposed and presented at various meetings. So before you tonight, again, is a proposed budget calendar, and you can approve the calendar or revise it due to council changes that would have conflicts.
Council, what are your wishes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying, roll call.
Councilmember Osk,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
Aye.
Osmus,
Aye.
Butterfield,
Aye.
O'Brien.
Aye.
8 yes, 0 nay.
That resolution passes. Next are community pride announcements. Does anybody from the council have any announcements they'd like to make? Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Public Works and the Rec Department for getting the fountain at Baker Field going. It looks pretty nice. So,
Perfect. Great. I have not been out there yet, so it must have been done last week.
yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Because I was out there the week before, I thought. Must not be where I thought it was.
Well, it's down in the hole.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else have anything that they wish to say? Okay, I was amiss at our last meeting. I did not report on the League of Minnesota Cities meeting, as is one of our policies, is that if we attend conferences, we're supposed to give a report back, so I apologize for not having done that. I had it on my notes, but I just didn't get it done, so. I attended the League of Minnesota Cities Conference up in Duluth. It was a good conference. It was very well attended. People were glad to be back out in public and meeting. Some of the meetings that I went to were on conflict resolution and how to deal with citizens that are having conflicts with you and how to better approach your wording. So that was a very good event. And then I also went to one on housing. And the one on housing talked about a couple different projects that are happening across the state. And 2 of them that were of interest to me was, number one was the one in Otter Tail County, where the city of Otter Tail and Otter Tail County are doing a project for housing. And they're looking at 5,000 new housing units within 5 years. And then they're in year 2 of that project, and they're currently at about 30% of what their goal is, and they figure that they had another report due the first part of July. So, and they were thinking that their number would be well over that 30%. But Otter Tail County is about 20,000 people bigger than Candioi County. Candioi County is about 40,000. They have about 60,000. But Otter Tail as a city is considerably smaller than what Wilmer is. I think the tune of about 900, if I remember right. And they've done a lot of housing there based on the fact of tax increment financing for infrastructure and working with the local developers on making the projects come to fruition. So a lot of those things I've been able to share with Paul Brian, who is the chair of the Wilmer Mayor's Housing Task Force. And then the other one that was very exciting was Duluth, and they're looking at putting projects within small areas. And so their project was based on lots that are 25 feet in width. And so they were looking at houses that can be put on a 25-foot lot, but also then they were giving more credit and more dollars if it fit on that lot, but then also if it was replicatable throughout the rest of their community. And so they've had a very good response to that. I think they had about 10 different projects that were in the works. And because they're built on the hillside, as we all know, that was a project that was very interesting. And then, of course, the regular events that happen at the League of Minnesota Cities is our general conferences and our general events. And Councilmember Nelson was elected to the League of Minnesota Cities board. And so she currently is a member on the board. So congratulations, Councilmember Nelson, on that appointment. So, and the nomination ratification of your vote. So with that, if there's nothing else, we'll go to closed session. And now this is a little bit different than we've done in the past, so bear with me. Hopefully I can read this right. We're going into closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 sub 3C to develop or consider offers or counteroffers for the city's purchase or sale of real property and or to determine the asking price for the real property to be sold to the city. The legal basis of closing the meetings is that the portion of the regular meeting of the city council will be closed pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 sub 3C. The council will not be asked to take any formal action after concluding the discussion in closed session. The following real property will be discussed separately in the closed session. Property located within parcel number 95-976-2302 surrounding Wilmer Poultry's facility. Parcel number 95-869-0100, just east of the airport, and property within parcel number 95-003-4940, next to the city auditorium. I'll now entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. We are closed.
was here. I
Yep.
think we should probably have a meeting with the residents and
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, start to schedule.
We are working on that.
Yeah.
We are
Okay.
working on that with
More
the city
secrets.
engineer, and he's coming up with some plans and designs and information about one-ways and two-way streets and
I think you got a good point, Vic. So we need to get a full report to the council.
Yep, we're working on a work session for this Second Street. So right now Bolton and Mink are coming up with, they've already shown us some arguments and.
Can we let them know that a meeting is going to be scheduled? Because the
We
construction.
have, I believe that we have.
The construction update I was told didn't have anything about. So
Well, we don't have a date. Would you like to set a date?
That's what we talked about at our council briefing last week. Was
Right,
that
we
you
didn't
guys would
set a
come up
date
with
in
a
our
date.
council briefing either.
No,
We
I
just
know.
can't set a date, but we have a work session also set for the budget for August 8th, if that holds true, so we can pass that on August 1st, just need August 8th if that, and we can have it probably at the same time.
Is that all of us? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
August 8th?
Like a work session on August 8th for the budget, we can have a discussion about Second Street at the same time. And then we would have just a public open house. It was gonna be, we were talking about just having like an invite to those on Second Street, but you're gonna have to invite those on Third Street because you change it to one way on Second Street, everybody's gonna go down Third Street or up, down, right, Third Street.
I think this is a Second Street conversation. I think that's.
It affects the Third Street residents though, quite clearly, because you're
Well,
gonna
it's
change the
gonna be
direction.
an open meeting, so
Yep.
anybody can come.
Somebody's car alarm is going off. It's the vehicle next to Marv's.
Mike, I think your car's next to mine. The pickup?
Whatever's to the east of your vehicle.
Should adjourn. Totally adjourn.
Is that mine?
You're sitting on your keys.
It's telling me to go.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
When someone's.
We're adjourned.
Your car alarm.